Welcome back to another episode of Let's Have Breakfast. I'm your host, Jadyn Eliz, and today we are talking friendship breakups. The theme for February, I'm wearing my red. It is February. I'm overjoyed for this month. I'm so happy to be in February. It's one of my favorite months. 2 is my favorite number. Black History Month, of course, is one of my faves. And it's just like a really good month for me for some reason. I really enjoy February. So the theme for this month is healing through love and heartbreak, because what is love without heartbreak? It gives podcasts, you know? I think I want to hold the mic. For those of you who are listening specifically to this episode, apologies to your ears if the sound changed at all from me grabbing the mic and just sitting here. February is Cupid's favorite, but for some of us, it is not our favorite because everyone's talking about love. It's on everybody's mind. The brands are talking about it. Your best friend's talking about it. Maybe your man is talking about it. Maybe not your man who you want to be your man is talking about it. Everybody and their mother are talking about love. And if you are a cynic or you don't really prefer the holiday and maybe you just went through something that was really traumatic, it can be a really hard time. Today we're unpacking a super heavy topic that I'm sure is near and dear to a lot of your hearts as well. And it weighs on my heart specifically because I've had friendship breakups myself, and it is just like one of the hardest things you can go through. So today we are talking about friendship breakups. And if you've never been through one of these, stay tuned because you will want to hear how to heal and process all of that shit. But for those of us who have gone through it, this is not new news. We will be unpacking what it really feels like and how we can turn ourselves around from this. What learning lessons we can gain from friendship breakups. In my opinion, friendship breakups can be almost as harmful, if not as harmful and confusing as regular breakups romantically. It often involves a sense of grief and loss, and you don't really know how to move on and process that because the person is still there. Like, they're just not your best friend anymore, and you just have to figure out a life without them and grow without them. And this is probably someone you foresaw being in your life forever. Like, I'm one of those girls that always dreamed of their wedding and always had their bridesmaids picked out at every given moment. And so for me, losing some of these friends, like, I was like, oh my God, I thought you were going to be my bridesmaid, girl. Like, what is happening? I think the most important thing to note when you are going through a friendship breakup is that it's really okay to miss them. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be upset about your friendship breakup. There's this misconception, especially for us women, when we are going through a friendship breakup, that you just have to hate the person on the other side of things. Because it's like, if you're not my friend, then we're beefing. And that's just not true. Like, I don't want to beef with you, girl. Like, we just shared so many memories and fun times. And unless you did some sick and twisted thing to me, like, I still respect you. At the end of the day, this person was someone that meant something to you for a reason, and to just like start beefing with them after you're no longer friends is just kind of crazy to me. I mean, there's situationally, I understand. There's certain things that happen that that's just out of your control. But if you ended just because you simply grew apart, or maybe you saw things differently and you just weren't really able to resolve the issue, I mean, come on now. That's not your op. That is not your enemy. Nobody is dissing you. This is not a rap beef. Like, y'all are good. Like, just squash it and move on. Like, another misconception that is often had during friendship breakups is that just because you don't want to be someone's friend anymore means that you hate them or means that you wish them ill. And I think there's just like no kind of middle ground between just acquaintances. Like, I can be cool around you, I can respect you, I just don't really want to know you like that, and that's okay. The thing is, healing from friendship breakups is gonna take time. Like, you are not just gonna, it's just like a romantic relationship. If you are with someone for years on end, you are not just gonna forget about them overnight. You're not just gonna be okay. You might find bad ways of coping with it, but you aren't necessarily just going to be done with the situation forever. And healing from a friendship breakup requires you to do some deep introspection and reflection and really get to know and understand why it did not succeed. Specifically for a lot of us, we struggle to be real with ourselves, right? We sit here and blame the other person for everything. Oh, it was her fault. She did this, she did that. Like, I would never do that to her. But what did you do to her? Because I personally believe, unless you were just an evil person, there is no way that you had no effect on your relationship failing, on your friendship failing. There's no way that this one person did everything by themselves. It's just not possible. There were equal contributors to making sure this relationship did not succeed. So what role did you play in making sure it didn't? And that's the part that nobody really wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear that they're responsible for their relationships failing, or that they're responsible, or that they hurt their friends' feelings. Like, I think there's so much lack of accountability, and if you aren't able to be accountable, you are not gonna heal from your friendship breakup. You might not heal from nothing, period. Like, come on, you gotta be real with yourself. You gotta be real. And like, you even see that right now with the Nicki and Megan beef. It's just a lot of animosity coming out for no reason when there could have been a conversation. But I think that really is a case study to friendship breakups. Like, they were really cool at one point. They made a song together. They, spent quarantine on live together. They, created experiences for us while we were in lockdown, and we really kind of got to know their friendship a little bit. And it was very short-lived, but at the same time, like, you can tell there was love there to begin with. And I think that's what happens in a lot of friendships when they end. People forget the love that they had for each other when it first started. And that's not to say things can't happen and there can't be reasons why, people are upset about certain things. But I kind of wonder in that situation, who had a conversation with each other? Did Nicki ever reach out and say, hey girl, like, you made me feel a kind of way when you said XYZ. Like, let's talk about it. You never know. Like, I think it's the same thing. You see celebrities take to Twitter real quick. They haven't even talked to each other. Like, I don't understand why people can't just talk to each other. And I think that's the biggest thing that happens in friendships and why they end, because people aren't able to have the conversation and be real with themselves on what part they played, taking accountability and accepting the fact that they maybe did something to hurt their friends' feelings, and then really just not being able to move on from it. And so I can speak to that personally. I've been there, done that. I'm a person that really values friendship. A little bit about my childhood. So I grew up in a home with a single mother and, amazing woman. Shout out to moms. And I also have siblings that I did not grow up in a house with, but I fought very, very hard to have relationships with, even in situations where they weren't necessarily wanted. And so I've always been that kind of person. I've always provided an avenue of access. I've always, been the one to constantly reach out, and no matter what the answer was, if the answer was no, whatever, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm not about to unpack all my childhood trauma while trying to tell this story, but I think there is something to be said about how my childhood has shaped the way I approach friendships. For me, if I'm letting you into my life, you mean something to me. Especially when it comes to my girlfriends, like, they mean a great deal to me. Those are like my sisters. Like, I would do anything for them, and I expect they would do the same. I'm the type of person that typically does not really get into arguments. I'm sure there's some people out there that could disagree with that statement. I think there's been some growth since certain situations, but at the same time, I don't really find myself at the root of disagreements or arguments. And I really prioritize communication. I've said this a little bit throughout this episode, but a good conversation goes a long way. Like I personally genuinely believe that so many things can be resolved through a conversation. And in my experience, there has been a lack thereof when it comes to kind of solving issues in friendships. I have two examples that really have impacted me and how I now approach friendships. So I had a really, really good friend in middle school, like bestie, locked in, worked together, did everything together. Like me and her, you would not see her without me or me without her. And that was really like my sister. And, just at one point, like we started to drift away. And it was really hurtful because I just couldn't really understand. And to be fair, like I was kind of wildin' at this point. Like once we got to high school, like I did kind of like go out a lot more and like do things that she wasn't really doing. And it got hard because we weren't at the same school. And so I think just like naturally we drifted apart. And then there was a level of jealousy because she got new friends, I got new friends. And it was just kind of like, girl, like, what about me? And I'm sure she was saying the same thing, like, girl, what about me? We never really had a conversation about it, but I, just kind of carried that for all these years. I was like, damn, like, I wish I would have been able to keep that relationship. And, we had a conversation. I guess it wasn't technically a conversation. We texted each other a few years ago about it because, I still view her as that person. Like, there was no animosity when things kind of ended. And, like, I just respected it. Like, it just seemed like both of us needed space. And, like, that's cool. Like, if that's what we need, cool. Now, moving forward, we had a conversation a few years down the line. And I was just kind of like, hey, like, I hope you're doing well. I would really kind of get a better understanding of like where your head was at when we stopped communicating. And, she told me, she confided in me about some things. And, they were things that were no fault of my own. It was just the circumstances of life. And I totally respect that. And we're cool now. We're good to this day. I would love to have a stronger relationship with her, but I'm willing to put in the work tenfold to have strong relationships in my life, and that's something I value. And so, once she's ready and wants to have a relationship like that again, girl, bestie, hit me up. Like, what's good? Now I have another situation that was not as didn't end as well. Again, I'm in no position to sit here and be like, I'm just an angel. I've done no wrong in my life. This second friendship I'm going to talk about ended because of a difference in values and a difference in how we view communication in general. In college, I had a friend that we were kind of part of a group, I would say. And I feel like being in a friend group in general is hard. It's like you want to have these individual relationships with people, but at the same time, like, you tend to be closer to some people than you are to others. And I feel like in this group specifically, that rang true. Like she was closer to some people. I was closer to some people. Like the other girls in our friend group were close to other people too. And it was really of no issue to me. Like two of our friends were roommates. Two of our friends were in the same sorority together. Like, it was just not a big deal to me. Like, I never viewed it that way. And if I did ever feel left out, I just kind of kept it to myself almost. Like, I self-soothed because I was an only child and because I constantly was in a position to have to kind of do things on my own and figure it out myself, and like was jealous of friends growing up. Like I would see, my friends had siblings. They would play with their siblings, or like they got to do fun things with each other. And it's like, it felt almost childlike to be in this situation to me. People view things differently, and I can't change your views just because this situation happened. Understanding that dynamic is important to be able to tell this story. We had somewhat of a falling out. One day, I think we all happened to be at the same place. And like I said, two of the girls were roommates. And so if I were to ever go over to their apartment and both of them happened to be there, but I really only had plans with one of them, it of course appeared like all of us would be hanging out together. All shared our locations. There were some assumptions made that, we're all just hanging out together without her, where she's never invited to things. And I can say, like, looking back now, being a few years out of that situation, I can say I'm sure there probably were instances where she wasn't invited to things. But I think in that same breath, there were instances where I wasn't invited to things, or there's instances where the other girls weren't invited to things. People tried to do their best to be inclusive, but at the end of the day, you're going to gravitate towards the people you're closer with. And so if other people had stronger relationships, I think that just happened. And I can understand why it's upsetting. Like, I fully understand, but I think at the same time, you have to really value the relationships that you do have. And I respect that if you don't feel valued, you can walk away from the relationship. But at the same time, I made a really active effort to show that I still cared and that I did want to be this girl's friend. The assumptions were made that we were all just like doing all these things without her. She left all of our group chats on everything. Every app, every text thread, like anything possible, she left. And it was just out of nowhere. And so, of course, like, we added her back and we're like, hey girl, like, are you okay? Like, what is going on? What's happening? And she, responded and was like, I need space. Like, I really want to work on individual relationships and please respect that. And so we did, like, removed her from the group chats again and just kind of let her do her own thing. And I kept my word on that. I prioritized an individual relationship with her. I continued to invite her to things as possible and just let her know, like, hey, everyone's going to be there. If you want to come, I want you to know you're invited. Personally, like, I don't want you to hear it from someone else. I'm inviting you. Please come if you feel like it. She opted not to come, and that's fine. That was her decision. I completely respect that. We continued to talk. I would continue to reach out to her and ask her how she's doing. And, we even walked and had a conversation about what happened. And I said, like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize, like, that's how you were feeling about it. I completely respect that. I will do a better job of trying to keep you included in things moving forward. Now, to that point, this is where I probably could have done things differently, but at the same time, I don't know that it was wrong either. Instead of telling her that while she had left the group chats, our friend group had planned a trip the following week. I'm talking to this girl, let's just say it's like a Friday, and then next Friday, we're going on a trip. I didn't tell her we're going on a trip simply because I just didn't feel like it was necessary information to share. We have a really good talk. Ending the talk, she says, I still really only want to prioritize individual relationships. I don't really want to operate as a group. Like, I still just want to prioritize these relationships before I hop back kind of into this group setting. I said, okay, cool, great. We go to an event, and of course, all of us are there. I let her know ahead of time, like, we are going to be going to this event tonight. Like, if I see you, like, it would be great to hang out. And so we hang out a little bit and are like, okay, let's keep this party going. And so we end up going to her apartment. It's awkward. Like, I don't think anybody that was there would not tell you that it was awkward. I think in general, it was just kind of like, okay, what do we do? Like, I'm the only person at this point that had a conversation and talked to her and apologized, owned up, and took accountability for where I could have done better. And so it was just kind of like, okay, what's happening? And then we ended up going out and we hung out and had a good time. And things didn't necessarily resume back to normal after that. Like, we didn't pick back up in a group chat. Like, things just kind of stayed as they were. And I remember us three as a group had a conversation and we're like, should we tell her? Should we tell her that we're going on this trip? And again, I was like, I don't know. I don't really know if it's necessary. I don't know if it will do more harm than good to tell her this information. To be honest, we decided not to tell her. We go on the trip. go to sleep, have a full day on Saturday. We wake up, we're getting ready. Me and, another friend are sitting on the couch. And I remember her saying something along the lines of, oh, she just texted. Like she said, oh, you guys are at XYZ. And we were like, what do we say? Like, like we made it safe. Have a good weekend or something. I don't know. This was so long ago. I wish I could remember text for text. But after that, she was just kind of like, oh, well, enjoy your time. So we're like, oh, okay, cool. Okay, we were right. We're good. Like, things are okay. And then she was like, y'all. Y'all, mic drop, leave group chat. Said, oh, we're not good. We certainly are not good. So it then proceeded with, being blocked on every social media account. Not just leaving group chats now. We're being blocked on everything. Which hasn't happened to me. Like I really haven't had like a friendship fallout where I'm beefing. That's not true. You know who you are. You slept with 2 of my exes. You know who you are, and y'all listening, if you went to high school with me, you know who I'm talking about. Anyways, it's hot. The month of February is hot and steamy. We're supposed to be healing, girl. We're healing, but we can't heal without addressing the issues head on. After we get these texts, right, we're like, okay, it essentially changed the trajectory of the day. It changed our attitudes. We were all hot and funky and upset and just like, what do we even do? Like, mind you, this is like 2 or 3 weeks before I graduate college. So I'm in a hot, funky mood because I'm like, this is really happening right now. Like, I thought we were good. Like, we just had a conversation. I'm confused. And so, she's cussing us out on Twitter. She's cussing us out on Snapchat, like everywhere. Even though we're blocked, we're still getting fed information, right? And I don't really do kind of the public antics. Like, that was maybe if you checked in with me 8 years ago when I was like in high school, I was a freshman or something like that. But as a grown woman, I'm not about to beef with you on the TL. Like, I'm not about to do all that with you. And I also don't appreciate that you're letting everyone else into my business. You're letting them into your business. Yeah, sure. But like, this is my business too. And I don't really appreciate that. I came to the consensus then and there that I was good. I don't really allow people, especially friends, because of how high and esteemed I hold them. You're not about to talk to me like that. You are not going to curse me out and throw a temper tantrum because you didn't get your way. Like, I don't do that. I will take accountability. I'll have a conversation. I will apologize to you and I'll mean it. All that other shit going out the window, girl. Like, I'm not about to sit here and play with you. I'm sorry. Following that, we got home, settled back in, had kind of internal conversations about it, and people made their own decisions based on that. Some of the girls decided to have a conversation with her and forgive her and hear her out and listen to her. She did reach out and say, I'd like to talk about this. And I said, you know what? Like, I'm good. Like, I'm good, love. So I was unwilling in that situation to have a conversation because I had said what I needed to say. I had taken accountability for how I made her feel. I can definitely understand where I could have done better in this situation when it comes to involving her in a trip. But to that point, I think it would have done more harm than good because we had already paid for the trip. Like, everything was already covered. There wasn't room for another person to go on the trip. And I think we were all kind of at a point where we didn't think it would be a healthy environment for any of us to go on this trip when there were so many unresolved issues. The other reason I didn't want to have a conversation is because I had the signs that this is not someone I want to continue a relationship with long term. I don't want to waste either of our times by sitting here having a conversation with you and trying to work it out and resolve it when you feel that comfortable disrespecting me, I just don't really, that's not how I get down. So you and me are never going to work if you feel that comfortable cussing me out over a miscommunication. And like, hey, everyone has their own boundaries. Everyone's entitled to that. But I think at the end of the day, like, respect is given. And if you don't even want to give me respect when you're upset at me, like, we just see things differently. And that's okay. But that means you're not for me. So I think the common thread about everything that I've been through when it comes to healing from some of these friendship breakups is that you have to understand that if the person on the other side is not willing to have a conversation, you cannot force someone to be your friend. It's like elementary school all over again. You can't force that girl, that boy, you can't force them to be your friend. So if they're not showing up for you how you need them to, and they're not willing to have the conversation and accept responsibility and really understand why your feelings are hurt, that just goes to show that, like, if you have someone on the other end of things that is willing to show up for you and is willing to have the conversation, is willing to sort of chase you to continue to be your friend during very hard situations, that it probably is someone you should keep around. And maybe you are pissed off at them right now, but like long term, think about the longevity of the kind of people you want to have in your lives. And if they're still aligned with that, I feel like there can always be somewhat of a resolve. The biggest key of having friendship breakups is being able to move on afterwards, which is not easy. And healing means you're not turning your nose up every time you hear their name, not muttering something under your breath when your friends are talking about this person, and you're really able to forgive, even if that's not something they asked for. Now, forgiveness is something you literally have to do to be able to move on from these situations. And that's not to say you forget about the things that happened, but it's being able to be at peace with the fact that this is how things played out. There's nothing that you can do to change it, and you have to move on. The biggest misconception when you fall out with someone is that you just automatically wish them bad. And especially in the situation where it didn't end great and we're not really on good terms, like, I don't wish anything ill on this girl. Like, I want her to succeed. I want her to get the things she wants out of life. I just am the kind of person that I just don't foresee us being in a healthy friendship, and that's okay. Like, I can wish you well from afar. I don't hate you. I am not mad at you. I can understand where you're coming from certain angles, but at the same time, that does not mean that I want to be your friend. On both sides of situations with friendship breakups, you just have to accept that the shit happened and move on. You either decide that you want to continue trying to be this person's friend after, or you don't. And you just have to be confident in making that decision. The thing is, too, as we continue to get older, like, relationships are only going to continue to get harder. People are going to have kids. People are not going to show up for you on your birthday. There's so much discourse about birthdays and, oh, only your true friends show up for you on your birthday. Like, you can really tell who your friends are by who shows up for you at your birthday dinner. Give me a break. Like, can we please be serious about this issue? Like, there are certain reasons people can't show up. And if you're just automatically going to get mad at everybody that can't show up for your birthday, I don't know. And maybe that's just a Leo thing. Like, I just personally believe you make your birthday about you. Like, yeah, sure, there's people in your life that should, try and make an effort to make it special. But if nobody shows up at my party, I'm not going to be mad at them. Like, if they have other things going on, I'm not going to be upset. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Like, that's life. Things happen. People cannot always be there for you. Everything is not about you. And I think as soon as you realize that, especially in friendships, like, your relationships will improve so much. Yeah, you're upset. People haven't checked in with you in days, or they haven't asked you what projects you're working on, or, whatever. They haven't touched base with you. When's the last time you asked them how they're doing? When's the last time you checked in with them? Do you know how their kids are doing? Like, as soon as you BFFR about the friendships and relationships in your life, like, you have to do reflection and see what kind of friend you are too. Like, It's not going to happen for you if you're also not showing up for people how you want to be shown up for. Being passive aggressive is not it. Now I'm just ranting, but being passive aggressive in friendships isn't it. You are grown. You can speak up. You can have these conversations. I think you're doing yourself a disservice by not having real, transparent conversations with your friends. I have seen a big difference in my relationship, this past year compared to years previous and like compared to college, because I feel like there's a different kind of depth. We start off conversations right there. Like we're there. We don't have to do the small talk to get into it. We are talking about our careers. We're talking about our life goals. We're talking about the harder things we're going through, and we're being real with each other. And I really respect that, because you're not alone in this. Like, your friends are going through things too. And I think it's really eye-opening to have these conversations so you're able to understand, like, oh, that's why they weren't able to come here for me, or they're going through this. Like, maybe I can show up better and I can be a better friend to this person while they're going through this thing. In order to be a good friend, you have to reflect and understand what role you're playing in the relationships, and if you are making it a healthy, productive, amazing space for your bestie. At the end of the day, you own your destiny, you own your friendships, you have the ability to heal from them, but that's only if you want to. You are not going to heal if you continue to curse this person out under your breath, and you have to be able to heal from your previous friendships to be able to foster and create new and healthy ones. So I really empower you during this month of love to pour back into yourself, show yourself that love that you wish your friends were showing you, or you wish your ex-friend was showing you, and have hard conversations. Like, be honest with your friends, show up for your friends. And maybe if you miss someone, maybe you didn't fall out, maybe you just drifted apart, I empower you to reach out to that person. Have coffee, do lunch, whatever. Build those relationships, get deep, be transparent, and have a good February. Thank you for listening to another episode of Let's Have Breakfast. I'm your host, Jadyn Eliz. Please make sure you subscribe, give us 5 stars. Leaving a review really helps boost this podcast, so thank you so much for doing so. Thank you again so much for listening, and be a better friend.